Good afternoon, members. I call Committee of the Whole on Bill 19, School Amendment Act 2025 to order, recognizing the Minister of Education and Child Care.
Thank you very much,
For any opening comments.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very excited to be here today. I'll introduce my staff from the ministry. We have Emily Arthur, Executive Lead, Kirsten Fisher, Executive Director, and Kristen Barnes, Executive Director. And I'd like to thank them for their support during this process. And I also want to thank the members opposite for what is sure to be a productive conversation, because I am very excited to review this bill through legislation today in the committee process. It is a demonstration of our government's commitment to childcare in our province, which is why our bill amends the School Act to allow boards of education more flexibility for types of childcare on school grounds. These amendments give boards the authority to provide childcare throughout the year as on Pro-D days, during school breaks like spring, winter, and summer breaks. And we know that childcare doesn't just end because the school year ends or because a Christmas break happens. And that's why we're recommending changes to allow schools to operate year-round, operate childcare rather, year-round. We also know public schools are trusted community hubs, which are designed as places for children to learn, to grow, and to play. And they hold incredible potential to deliver the kinds of care and services families need that are above and beyond the critical role they play during school hours. These amendments will also authorize school districts to provide childcare directly for children of all ages, including infants and toddlers. These are amendments that families, school boards, childcare advocates, and education partners have been asking for. We've also heard from boards that they're eager to work with the childcare sector in my ministry to expand their ability to offer care on school grounds. But to do that, they need to be able to operate it sustainably. So with these changes that we're discussing today, districts will be able to recoup reasonable fees to recover costs for providing childcare services, just like administration and maintenance, just as nonprofit centers currently go about their business operations. This isn't just good news for families. It's an opportunity to create new jobs, to open up new opportunities for people entering the workforce, for those already working in education and childcare. It also means that districts and rural and remote communities that face their own unique challenges to providing childcare will have new opportunities and new avenues to fill that gap, so that families can have access to care no matter where they live. I also want to clearly state again that we're not requiring districts to do this. They know their communities best. And each district is going to determine whether and how to offer childcare on school grounds in collaborations with their local communities, with First Nations, and to meet local needs. Many districts are ready to dive into these changes right away. Others are going to take time to assess and plan. And my ministry is here to support districts every step of the way. We're here to answer questions, provide guidance, and help with implementation. These amendments align the School Act with all the important work that we're doing to help us continue building on a sustainable childcare system families can rely on. Our government remains focused on delivering affordable, quality, inclusive childcare that meets the needs of BC families. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Recognizing the member for Chilliwack North on Clause 1, unless you have some opening comments.
Thank you. Well, I guess I would just say it's a pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to ask questions around the amendments to this bill. And I guess I would start out by saying that a government-run child care monopoly as such is not a made-in-BC solution. So, of course, we support solutions for families and their child care needs. We're also concerned about the fact that we know that families are the cornerstones of society and should be prioritized in every aspect of our society. Directly to Clause 1A, I guess the first question that I'll ask is, what kinds of parameters are there for school districts because space is so limited in so many school districts, what kind of parameters are there if they decide to devote a space in a community school? As you're aware, community schools function in some cases for profit, renting spaces out, revenue such as $15,000 a month for one spot in a community school. Is this government deciding that charging parents a reasonable amount could incur high costs to parents? So that is a concern. Thank you.
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the member for the question. We, as a government, have been very, very clear on our commitment to childcare, that it needs to be affordable for families. That's laid out in our Childcare BC plan. It's in everything we do and everything we talk about. The word reasonable indicates that the intent is to keep costs sensible. Importantly, the phrase in the proposed bill is reasonable costs incurred or to be incurred by the board providing that child care program to the child. So practically speaking, this means that costs are limited to those costs which are A, reasonable, and B, are incurred or to be incurred by the board, and that they relate specifically to providing the child care program to that child. So again, that has to be directly related to providing childcare for the child. In addition to that, if the school districts are accessing our fee reduction programs, that there is an overlying funding agreement that have further limitations on the fees that they can charge. The fees must be related to and reasonable costs incurred or to be incurred in providing childcare program to the child and cannot exceed the fee maximum set out in the agreement. So the intent is to limit fees for parents while also enabling boards to recover their costs. And boards are required to adhere to legislative requirements, in which case it's that fees for childcare cannot be more than reasonable costs incurred by the board. So that's exactly the safeguards put in. And so hopefully that covers that for the member. I think the member will have more questions on space. So I think I'll just give a short answer now because I know the member's going to come back with some more questions. But really, in reality, boards have the authority to determine the use of their facilities. This is exactly what they do. Local boards have that autonomy. They are well versed in navigating variable uses throughout the day, before and after school hours, and that is the local autonomy they're going to be able to preserve.
Recognizing the member for Chilliwack North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So through the chair, so what are the actual parameters on this? Reasonable, sensible are subjective terms. And so what kind of accountability and assurance do we have that boards are, that what they consider reasonable might not seem reasonable to parents that they're charging the fees for?
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the member. Again, our commitment to the public is to ensure that there is affordable childcare, and it is limiting it to reasonable costs incurred incurred by the board. There is a precedent for the term reasonable costs in other pieces of provincial legislation. It exists, for example, in the Forestry Road Service or Forest Service Road Use Regulation, Strata Property Act, Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. So this isn't a random set of words that we've chosen. This is standard drafting for government in that process. But it limits it to reasonable costs incurred by the board for providing care, child care to that child, and it indicates our intent to keep costs sensible.
Recognizing the member for Abbotsford West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the chair to the minister. The minister mentioned fee reduction program. Can you explain what that means? And are you subsidizing boards when they are not allowed to charge the end user because it's costing them more to have these programs in? And if so, where's that money coming from?
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair. So just a reminder to the members that this bill is about amending Section 82.5 or 85.2 and 85.3, which talks about the flexibility for types of childcare and the ability to provide care throughout the year for boards. This isn't a bill about funding. That being said, I will just briefly say for the members that the amendments will allow school boards to access the same subsidy programs as third-party providers, but that's a conversation for outside this bill debate, because this, again, bill is not about funding. It's about the physical access and space and permission.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate the Minister and the staff the opportunity to ask a few questions. I think, generally speaking, as opposition, we want to get behind this bill. We obviously know that there are, challenges in the number of spaces available for childcare, and this is a potential solution to some of that, especially in the off season, where we know that just because school's out, that parents do still need care. I'm just going to highlight a few questions here this afternoon, Mr. Chair, kind of directly related to my debate speech around some of the specifics here. For Clause 1, so my first question is around capital upgrades to facilities. And not necessarily every school, even though they may have a desire and a market for additional childcare, their facilities may not be ready to take in children, especially preschool-age children. So I'm just, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if the Minister could provide us any details as far as, is there a budget allocated for capital upgrades to some of these buildings that do need the childcare? Thank you.
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the member for the question, because I am really glad to hear that members across the way want to get behind this bill. This is a great bill that is going to provide childcare spaces, all across this province in every region, and so that's something we all should be able to get behind. And so I thank you for the albeit tentative support. I know there's more questions to come, but truly it's a place we can all get to. This is one of those good news bills in the House that don't come all the time, and so a lot of the work we get to do is transformational, and this is one of those pieces, and so I'm really glad we get to do that. Funding considerations are dealt with outside of this bill, during outside of any bill debate really on this, but we have opportunities now to work with districts by removing the existing barriers that existed in the legislation. By removing them through this new piece of legislation, these amendments, now we can work with districts to do planning on what their needs are, what spaces they have available to support that. School districts now will have the ability to engage in that planning work, including space planning. So those are all future conversations.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister for that answer. And yeah, just to reiterate, generally, like I said, we do want to get behind this bill. It's just our job to ask some of the questions around the implementation and how this will look. So I do appreciate that. The Minister just briefly mentioned some of the barriers that school districts will face. Could she provide on the record, either through some of the conversations that have already taken place or potential future conversations around what specifically some of those barriers are going to be for school districts, Mr. Chair?
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, and my apologies if it wasn't clear. It was the barriers they faced previous to the legislation, which is why we implemented the legislation to remove those barriers, which now allows them, for example, to operate care on non-instructional days during break weeks and all of that. So it was the barriers that existed that we are removing, not future barriers.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank the Minister for that clarification. I think the Minister sort of answered this in her previous answer, but if we could just sort of solidify that a little bit here for the record. Are school districts to provide the ministry with like a facilities readiness plan as far as each school district is concerned, as far as physical spaces that are ready to be transferred into accepting specifically, again, underage children into some of those buildings? And then will that be reported to the public as well, either via the school board and then into the communities? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair. So for anyone who's listening online or at home, this bill is 3 lines, literally 3 lines. The first line does 2 things. It removes the restrictions to providing childcare programs to enrolled students only in the district. And only before and after school care. So as we said, not on days of Pro D or school breaks or those things. Second line permits boards to recoup reasonable costs incurred in providing care to that child. The third line, the final line, is royal assent. That is it. That is all this bill is. It is an enabling piece of legislation that allows boards to engage in this planning work and to do this work. The member is asking about future work and future implementation, which can be another conversation at a future date. But for this conversation, these are the enabling pieces of the legislation, and there's work to do in community. Thank you.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I understand that. I understand it's a brief amendment and that there will be some work to do probably with childcare licensing regulations and additional regulations to implement that. But I think it's also fair and reasonable to ask the questions about it, Mr. Chair. I think it's our job to at least get on record that, some of the questions directly related to the clauses in this bill are addressed by the ministry. I guess it's up to you, Mr. Chair, if you rule them out of order, but I'm going to keep asking. As far as, one issue I brought forward in my speech was around some of the staffing. And I think when we're looking at clause 1 here and adding additional time that children would be provided care, we have to look at not only the staffing in the rooms for those children, but also there's supplemental costs with things like custodial staffing. So I wonder if the ministry does have a plan around that which they could share on the record as far as, how are they going to address having adults in the room and also the additional pressures to be put on things like custodial staff, which do a great fantastic job in our schools to keep them clean and safe, and how some of that extra time is going to be spoken for as far as a budget line item. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair. And for the member, as I said earlier in one of my previous answers, boards have the authority to determine the use of their facilities, and they're well versed in navigating this in their districts. This is what they do. This is the enabling piece of legislation that allows them to start planning processes, and much of the question is about future state and future implementation.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll ask the question a different way. Is there a specific budget allocation given to the Ministry of Education for additional staffing measures through this legislation? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Recognizing the minister.
Thank you, Chair. Bills aren't where we have budget discussions.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess, is it fair to say on record then that we're, debating legislation here, which we'll, assuming will pass this afternoon, and we really have no idea what it's going to cost the taxpayers of BC? The minister insinuated that we should just whip through these and not ask the questions and pass it.
The minister did not insinuate that we should rush through this legislation.
No, the minister did insinuate that it's very short, in 3 lines.
Yes, and I'd ask that you just retract the statement, because the minister did not say that we should rush through the legislation.
I'll retract, absolutely.
Thank you.
Having said that, I still think it's fair to ask questions on the public record related to funding, that's going to, change how we operate childcare publicly in the province. But I'll move on, I suppose. Did the ministry have meaningful consultation in this School Amendment Act 2025 with the BC Teachers Federation?
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare. Thank you.
Thank you. So short answer is yes to the member. I'm sure he's got some more follow-up questions on that.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Chair, for that. In relation to the consultation with the BC Teachers Federation, would the Minister be willing to share what some of the concerns brought forward by the BCTF around this amendment would be?
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair. So conversations with CUPE and the BC Teachers Federation expressed support for the expansion of childcare on school grounds, and they expressed looking forward to being involved in district-level discussions moving forward. Both teachers and education staff are parents too, and so this is good news for everyone.
Recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the minister for that answer. Just wondering about some accountability measures here. So within Clause 1 here specifically, Mr. Chair, does the ministry plan on publishing some sort of annual report after this bill moves forward as far as, the successes and challenges of the implementation of this bill once it's on the ground in school districts?
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair. So once again, Chair, this bill focuses on removing barriers so districts can continue the good work of expanding childcare across the province. Once these amendments are made, if they pass, our team will be working closely with districts and partners on implementation. These are all future state conversations.
Shall clause recognizing the member for Chilliwack North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because this government is opting to discontinued for-profit eligibility for the New Spaces Fund, this, of course, raises another issue. Collective agreements mandated systems impacts the bottom line for end users who are parents. What will parents do if and when these government-run facilities are unhappy with their contracts and they go out on strike?
Member, I just remind all members that this piece of legislation, as the Minister has mentioned, is enabling legislation. This is not a new piece of legislation talking about implementing child care programs. So I ask that your questions be very, very succinct and close to the clauses as described and the amendment as such.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I'm actually partially referring to the briefing that we received prior to this bill being introduced. So that's why I'm curious as to what the intentions of the government are should the private daycares are all replaced with the government-run daycares, which is an intention here. So,
recognizing the Minister.
Thank you, Chair. This bill is 3 lines. The first line does 2 things. It removes the restrictions to provide childcare programs to enrolled students only within the district. And it removes the restriction to only providing before and after school care. The second line permits boards to recoup reasonable costs to be incurred in providing childcare to that child. And the third line is royal assent.
Recognizing the member for Chilliwack North.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to ask a general comment in regard to what appears to be opposition to allowing for choice for parents to decide whether or not they believe their child's needs would best be made in a private daycare or in a government daycare.
Member, I unfortunately am going to rule that question out of order. That, again, the Section 1, Clause 1, speaks to the expansion of the authority of the boards of education to provide child care programs on board properties. As such, the question should remain as close as possible to what the clause at hand is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, how about this one? So this appears to be an ideological partisan agenda that will close private businesses and instead award contracts, thereby punishing small business owners. What assurances can this government put in place that will protect and respect small business and entrepreneurs?
Member, unfortunately, that question is also out of order. This question of the Clause 1 is talking about the authority of school boards to provide child care. Solely that. So if you'd like to rephrase your question that fits within the Clause 1 of this particular bill, that would be appreciated.
All right. How about, I'll just ask this question. Will this government declare childcare workers an essential service?
Member for Chilliwack North, I've given a lot of latitude to this point. Clause 1. The board may provide child care program on board property if the board is a licensee. if we can make sure that the questions that you ask are framed within section 1, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As this committee may or may not be aware, I was a school board chair for 16 years, and Chilliwack was one of the pilot projects that took part in this.
Member, 1 second. I'd ask all members to be respectful and to ensure that individuals who are trying to ask questions are able to do so. Thank you. Member, continue. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. And so, in the pilot project, which we don't have any of the results from, unfortunately, I witnessed a situation where a private daycare across the road from a school was affected by this pilot project, hence my line of questioning.
I understand that you have a lived experience as a past school board trustee, but the questions that have to be asked, as we are in clause by clause review, have to relate to the clauses. So I ask that the questions relate specifically to what is in the bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would vehemently disagree. And so just for the record, I do believe that it is pertinent information that is important for the public to know and understand. So I will let my colleague go ahead and ask some questions.
Recognizing the member for West Vancouver Capilano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On a positive note, I believe that this amendment would certainly address the high percentage of families experiencing difficulty finding care, which was in 2023 about 58, nearly 60% of people. And it does have positives: increased access and scope, convenience for families, and efficient use of existing infrastructure. I'm hoping that the line that I would like to know about is a part of this. With the childcare, there was the beginning, it was September 2020, the Priorities and Accountability Cabinet Committee approved the recommendation that by year 10 of the Childcare BC plan, space creation funding eligibility would be limited to public organizations, Indigenous governments, and nonprofits. Then June 17, 2021, a decision note was signed opting to discontinue for-profit eligibility for the New Spaces Fund. 2024, the BC NDP government provided $2 million in funding over 2 years to 3 school districts, Nechako Lakes, Chilliwack, and Nanaimo Ladysmith, as an initiative to create 180 new licensed childcare spaces. When the 2024 program was announced, it included the commitment to gather information on implementing daycare spaces in schools. I was just wondering, is there a report through the chair to the minister? Is there a report from that 2024? And if so, where is it, and what would the recommendations? And would this be provided to interested school districts who want to have their daycare or childcare in their school district?
So, members, we are on Bill 19, the School Amendment Act 2025, and it's an enabling piece of legislation. Clause 1 is speaking about the whether or not a board is able to provide childcare. So the questions that one is asking have to relate as close as possible to the amendment that are no, that the amendments that are here. So if you would like to rephrase your question, and then the minister would be able to answer that question, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the minister, I'm just curious if there was any way that we could see what was happening in those districts, that we can provide a childcare program on board property moving forward. That's my basic question. Would it be different? Were they all the same? Yeah. Thank you.
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair. So through you to the member, Chair, we engage regularly with every single district in this province, all 60 of them. These amendments that we have before us today are reflective of common barriers experienced and expressed by all districts across this province.
Thank you, Minister. The committee is going to take a 10-minute break and return at 4:01 p.m. I call Committee of the Whole on Bill 19, School Amendment Act 2025 back to order. We're on Clause 1. Shall Clause 1 pass?
Aye.
Recognizing the member for Chilliwack North.
Thank you. My colleague is going to ask a question.
Recognize the member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the enthusiasm with which you welcome me. My question is on Clause 1, and it's a question about the establishment of Clause 1 and how it came to be. And my question is really quite simple. What research has the minister conducted, Mr. Chair, regarding a business case and cost-benefit analysis for this specific amendment? Thank you.
Recognizing the minister.
Thank you, Chair. So we engage regularly with every single board across the province. The amendments we have before us reflect common barriers experienced by boards across this province, and that's what we're doing, just removing those barriers.
Recognizing the member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the minister's response, Mr. Chair, that actually does not answer the question at all. What I'm asking about is regarding a business case and cost-benefit analysis, because it is clear that such a change has a great deal of effect on a number of aspects with regards to the operations of schools and with the operation of daycare. And having had some experience with this myself, I'm very interested in the government's research and background beyond merely consulting with school districts. What have they done with stakeholder groups? What have they done with the various elements of the communities affected in regards to developing this proposal? Have they looked at the effect that this would have on broad aspects of the government's budget, for example? There are a number of issues here that I think are affecting this specific amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. However, the minister did answer that question earlier about the various stakeholder groups that the minister and the ministry have interacted with. So we'll move on to the next question. Recognizing the member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with removing that aspect of my question, again, what does the business case look like for this particular amendment? Thank you.
Recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare. Thank you, Chair. So budgeting isn't part of bill discussions. The bill we have before us reflects the conversations that we've had about the barriers that boards are experiencing in every single corner of the province.
Recognizing the member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was not about budgeting. It was about the business case. Thank you, Mr.
And again, the minister's answered this question, and we are not in estimates. The next question, recognizing the member for West Vancouver Capilano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to go back, if I may, to the 2024 successful program. So through the chair to the minister, obviously the 2024 program, or in those 3 school districts, was successful or proved successful, so that I'm curious in terms of child development, I'm curious about family support and community impact. And did that inform the changes in this bill for this particular clause 1? Yeah, I know, it meant, but yeah.
recognizing the Minister of Education and Childcare.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the member. The member asked about impact and about need for increased childcare on school grounds, and these amendments reflect the conversations and input we've had from all districts across the province and our stakeholder groups. And really, through you, Chair, to the member, it's an easy set of amendments for me to bring. This was an easy piece of legislation for me to get going because we all know the impact it's going to have for families and what a difference it's going to make for children and families in every corner of the province. And so it's simple to bring this piece of legislation with these amendments because it's the right thing to do.
Recognizing the member for West Vancouver Capilano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you to the Minister, I want to thank you for your patience and the convoluted question. It was looking, I think what it is transparency and consistency across the province, right? And that was what I'm aiming for, but it's not right in that little clause. It's like underneath. So looking at quality measurement metrics, PLOs, those sort of things. So I would love to have a coffee with you someday and have a chit chat and talk about that. So thank you very much for your time.
Recognizing the member for North Vancouver, West Chilliwack North.
Bingo.
East, west, north.
You got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to bring forward a motion to make an amendment.
To your motion, and then we'll take a look to determine if it's in order, and if so, we'll circulate it.
Thank you. So in order to move forward with this amendment, which the minister has said that it's easy to do because it's going to benefit everybody, I would further like to see that it actually does benefit everybody and enable parents to be able to access this in a meaningful way. And so my motion is, did I just read the whole thing? I, Heather Maws, move in Committee of the Whole on Bill number 19, School Amendment Act 2025, an amendment as follows. Clause 1B, by striking out to the child and substituting to the child, provided that the fees do not exceed a cost of $10 per day per child for each day that the child care program is provided.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I will take a 5-minute recess. Yeah, I call Committee of the Whole on Bill number 19, School Amendment Act 2025 back to order. Received the amendment moved by the member for Chilliwack North. And the motion is to strike out the child and substitute the child, provided that the fees do not exceed a cost of $10 per day per child for each day that the child care program is provided. I've deemed that the amendment or the motion is out of order as a result of there being an expenditure. So that being said, on clause 1, shall clause 1 pass? Aye. Recognizing the member for Chilliwack North.
Thank you. So I would just like to comment that
On the amendment or something
on
else?
the amendment, if I may?
No,
I may not.
you may not.
All right. Well then, I have additional questions for clause 1. Hang on a second. Sorry.
Take your time.
I thought I was going to
You
be
have
able to
14 minutes.
speak. Excellent. All right, because clause 1 expands both who can deliver childcare programs on school grounds and the types of care that may be provided, it's important to understand that past commitments the province has already made under its federal agreements. Each Canada BC action plan sets annual space creation targets for how many new childcare spaces will be funded with federal dollars. Can the minister indicate what those overall targets were for 23, 24, and 25? Having those figures on hand will help the committee track the change of pace in growth after these legislative changes take effect.
Member, I'd ask that you clarify the question because I'm not sure how that ties to clause 1.
Well, in clause 1, we're discussing providing childcare programs, and if the board is a licensee, so this would all be pertinent to it.
You're talking about federal spaces, and clause 1 speaks to providing a childcare program.
Federal spaces awarded to BC, British Columbia. Okay. Let me try another one. Can the minister state, through the chair, can the minister state how many new childcare spaces on school grounds are expected to be created by the end of the 25-26 fiscal year, and of those, how many are projected to be school-age spaces?
Recognizing the minister.
Thank you, Chair. So the bill is 3 lines. The first line does 2 things. It removes restrictions to provide childcare, to providing childcare programs to enrolled students only in the district, and removes the barrier that restricts to only before and after school care, so permitting for Pro-D and breaks, for example. The second line permits boards to recoup reasonable costs incurred in providing that childcare, and the third line is to royal assent. The member is talking about future state and future work that will have to be done with districts across the province.
Or Chilliwack North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a fair question with the changes being made, the provisions to boards to expand. So I don't understand why this is not a fair question.
So shall clause 1 pass?
Aye.
Recognizing the member for Chilliwack North.
Okay. Can the minister provide the committee with the number of school-aged childcare spaces funded through the Childcare BC New Spaces Fund in 23-24 and separately in 24-25? Having those year-specific results will help establish a clear baseline for understanding the ministry's pace of delivery before expanding board authority under clause 1.
Unfortunately, that question's also out of order. Shall clause 1 pass? Aye. So ordered. Shall Clause 2, recognizing the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Looking at Clause 2, I would like to have a motion here to bring forward an amendment, which I would like to read now to Clause 2. So Clause 2.1, by adding the underlying text as shown, 2.1 subsection 1, the minister must A, table an annual report.
Member,
Oh,
if you're
sorry.
adding a 2.1, we'll have to deal with Clause 2 first, and
Okay,
then you can do 2.1.
I was just testing you, Mr. Chair. I knew
No,
that's what you
my
would say.
apologies. So shall River Revelstoke.
Deja vu here, Mr. Chair, thank you. I would like to move a motion to bring forward an amendment to Clause 2, adding subsection 2.1,
Okay.
which I will read now. Subsection 1, the minister must, A, table an annual report in respect to the operation of the provisions of the School Act that are amended by this act in the Legislative Assembly, or deposit the report with the clerk of the Legislative Assembly if the Legislative Assembly is not in sitting. And B, publish the report on a publicly accessible website maintained by or on behalf of the ministry. Subsection 2, the report referred to in subsection 1 must provide detailed information on the following. A, capital costs related to the upgrading of school property and equipment. B, costs arising from infrastructure pressures. C, labor costs. D, costs related to consultation with the BCTF in respect to implementation. E, administration costs, and F, general expenses. And if I just may add a couple of words about the amendment, Mr. Speaker, I think it's just totally reasonable that there is some public accountability moving forward with this amendment, that the public, specifically families, are aware of what the general costs are going to be for this, and communities know, taxpayers know what we're getting into here with this amendment. Again, I think it's just something that's more of a housekeeping item more than anything, which is
Oh,
reasonable.
hold on. Members, there's a committee going on. There's committees going on right now, and you're speaking very loudly. I'd ask that everyone please reduce their volume so that a member for Columbia River Revelstoke can make his question or explain his motion. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just a simple accountability measure. I know there are some pilot projects which I think are a great idea around the province to, sort of test the waters as far as how is this going to work around the province. We haven't received any follow-up reports on those pilot projects yet. I'm sure they'll be coming, but I think as we institute this legislation, I think this is a very fair and reasonable amendment to bring forward so that there is public accountability as to what we're undertaking here today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The committee will take a 5-minute recess, and we'll come back at 4:36 p.m.
Okay, I'm going to call the committee back to order. If everyone can have their seats. Thank you. I have confirmed that this bill is in order, or this amendment is in order. So members, we have an amendment to clause 2, or 2.1. Can I go in front of us? I will go to the minister.
Thank you, Chair. So we will not be supporting this amendment for a few reasons, but I thank the member for bringing it forward, and I understand, what the member was trying to accomplish. But the main reason being that the sections of the School Act that we're talking about, and I've said it a number of times here, are all about the authority for boards to operate childcare programs. It's about removing the barriers for boards in operating childcare on school grounds. Very specifically, that is what this section of the Act does. This amendment does not fit in this section of the Act. The wording does not make sense, and it doesn't have relevance to the section or any of the sections we have before us. We will not be supporting the amendment.
Okay, so on the amendment to add clause 2.1, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Division has been called. Before putting the question, I remind all members that only the members of Section A or their duty appointed substitute are authorized to vote. The question is, shall amendment Clause 2.1 pass? All those in favor, please stand. Please sit. All those opposed, please stand. Good. Please sit. I recognize the clerk.
Mock, Williams, 3. Those voting nay, Bear, Routledge, Osborne, Sooner, Phillip, Botterill, 6.
So the amendment is defeated. So the amendment is defeated. We will move to Clause 3, but first we will let people move to their seats. Okay, I will just confirm for the record that it is noted that it was Variet who voted, not Botterill. Shall Clause 3 pass? Aye. So ordered. Shall the title pass? Aye. So ordered.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the committee rise and report the bill complete without amendment.
I've heard the question. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. This committee now stands adjourned. Staff members, I call Committee of the Whole on Bill 20 to order. I will look to the Minister. Minister?
Thank you. I just want to make sure I introduce the team that's with me today and thank them for their work and for accompanying me through this committee stage. We have Katie Armitage, JSB Legal Counsel. We have Maria D'Arcangelo, the LSB Senior Legal Counsel. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, shall clause 1 pass? Aye. Member from Boundary Sycamore.
Similkamee. Thank you. I was wondering if the minister could just give us a high level overview of this clause and what we're trying to achieve with it.
Minister.
So for this clause, it sets out the definition. So every time you want to have a defined term so it's clear in the rest of the act what that term means, it's set out in this definition clause.
Member from Boundary Similkameen.
Thank you. Is there any, is everything in the definitions a new definition? Or are we adding anything specific? Like, is the whole clause new? Or is it just a couple things you're adding?
Minister.
Thank you. So the whole piece of legislation this time is brand new. It's introducing a whole new regime of prompt payment in the province, so that includes these definitions.
Shall clause 1 pass? Aye. Oh, member Richmond Queensborough.
So I would ask what brought this bill forward. Going to the general intent of this bill and the general attitude allowed on clause 1, I'd like to ask the question, what was the purpose and intent that the Attorney General's department dealt with in order to bring this bill forward?
Minister?
Thank you. So just to say, thanks for the question about the purposes legislation. It gives me an opportunity to talk about the advocacy and the great work that we did with a range of organizations from across the sector. So general premise and idea of this piece of this bill is to fix what is a chronic problem in the construction sector. There are many different actors that go into building in the province, whether it's a school or a hospital or just homes in communities. And a chronic problem that was coming to us was lack of prompt payment. And that means that when you're not paid on time, it affects not only workers on the front line, it affects the small businesses, it affects the kind of pyramid of or chain of payments that go through the sector at each level. So it means people have to carry on more debt potentially, that it could lead to the rise in costs of projects, and they could take longer, and workers on the front line suffer. So just to say, we're really grateful for a group of people that sat down with us to set up a working group. I'll just give you an idea of who they were. BC Construction Association, BC Electrical Association, BC Insulation Contractors Association, British Columbia Sheet Metal Association, Canadian Home Builders Association of BC, Concrete BC, Electrical Contractors Association, Fenestration and Glazing Industry Alliance, Faro Buildings, General Contractor Alliance of Canada, Mechanical Contractors Association of BC, Mechanical Contractors Association of Canada, Roofing Contractors Association of BC, and Roof Builders and Heavy Construction Association, the Urban Development Institute, and the Association of Consulting Engineering Companies of British Columbia, along with others. So just the breadth of people that offered their expertise and perspectives and sat down with us a couple years ago to first look at other provinces and what was happening with prompt payment, and also help us work towards what we have before us today. So I just want to extend my gratitude to those groups and the many more that worked with us.
Member from Richmond, Queensborough.
Was this an exhaustive list of the parties that were consulted?
Minister?
Thanks. It's not an exhaustive list, and just wanted to note that this was a roundtable that we held in 2023 and 2024. So the members that I listed were the organizations that participated in that roundtable with us.
Member from Richmond, Queensborough.
There is another organization that is a very, very large organization, the ICBA. Did the Attorney General's Department get a chance to consult with them in regards to this bill and the preparation of this bill?
Minister?
Thank you. So this conversation and discussions have been going on for a very long time. So we took some time to go through all the different opportunities or times that we consulted with the sector. And it may not be exhaustive, but just for the particular BA that the member raised, there was a roundtable on August 27th with the BCBC, and I think a member was there. Also, we've had a lot of really public. So every time we did a roundtable, and I know because the ones that I was a part of, we always invited people that were present to give feedback on anything that was happening or give us their ideas. And Katie and her team were very good about meeting with everybody. So it would have been all the opportunities would have started probably when we struck even the roundtable in 2023 for sectors or industry organizations to come forward and meet with us.
Member from Richmond, Queensborough?
So why I bring up the name of ICBA, like I mentioned earlier, is probably the larger organizations or maybe even the largest organization involving independent contractors in this province and representing a lot of contractors. And it's important to know what they had to say. I understand maybe there may have been a meeting done or there may have been a roundtable done, but I would like to know what they actually said. And I would like to know what was said to them.
Minister?
Thank you. We just had to dig to see, because it's been going on for so long, how to answer the member's question, because it's a pretty broad question, but I'll just say that maybe it helps by giving the opportunities that we've had for ICBA to participate. So the first one would have been, I talked about the roundtable a long time ago, like 2023, where we had set up a table and sought input. In April 2025, we confirmed that we would be moving forward with legislation. I know that, and we didn't receive anything in writing or a request for a meeting from ICBA, but they did attend on August 27th a roundtable that was held by BCBC. And then I'm told that my ADM, Paul, called Chris, who's the head of the association, just to talk it through. And from what I report, so just to go back to the roundtable, at that time at the roundtable, there was a walkthrough of the legislation and a walkthrough of what we were including, and a request for any further feedback. I've never received directly from them a correspondence or anything to say that that they are, have a problem with the content of what we were putting forward even before it was a bill. And then I'll just confirm that on January 2025, ICBA did a survey of all of their members, and 31% that said prompt payment was a big issue. So I think it was supported by work that they did with their own members.
Member from Richmond, Queensborough?
Is the Attorney General aware that ICBA put out a press release on October the 7th demanding immediate clarity in terms of this prompt payment legislation?
Minister?
Yes, I was, and I'll note that these were not communicated concerns to me before the bill or any other opportunities that they might have had to raise that. And I'm actually really looking forward to getting into the other clauses of the bill so we can get into details of what's contained in the bill, just to show that the concerns that they raised in that October 7th release are completely unfounded. And, would have been helpful for them to raise it earlier so we could have clarified that they're unfounded.
Member from Richmond, Queensborough?
For the record, can the Attorney General, in her own words, let this chamber know what the concerns of ICBA are that the Attorney General finds that are unfounded?
Minister?
I think we both know, but I'll just say it for the record. The public statement was that the prompt payment wouldn't apply to public projects, which, like I said, is completely unfounded, and I'm happy once we get to those clauses in the bill to talk through that.
Member from Richmond, Queensborough?
I'd just like to, one thing I missed earlier, when I said ICBA, the Independent Contractors Businesses Association, I said that they're like the largest independent contractor in BC. They're actually one of the largest, probably the largest in Canada. That's how big they are. They're a very large organization, comprised of a lot of independent contractors, and this organization represents a very significant amount of people that engage in this type of work, the subject matter of this particular bill. So it's very important that we do touch upon what their concerns are in order to make sure this bill fulfills what it's meant to fulfill. It should equally apply to everyone, whether they're private bodies or public bodies. And if one of the most significant independent contractor organization has an issue, those need to be debated, and those need to be mentioned, as well as we need to probe whether there are actual, in fact, solutions to their problems or their issues actually within this bill. So that's an important point, and like the Attorney General said, we are going to go through the bill further, and I will probe the bill as we get to those sections and clauses in regards to this. So I just want to put that on the record so that that issue is still a live issue. And in addition to the ICBA, the Attorney General mentioned that this was in the works, I think, since 2023. And I think in second reading, the Attorney General also mentioned that there may have been samples from other provinces that have adopted similar legislation. And so the question here is, which provinces did the Attorney General's department look at? And what was the feedback there? And then was this legislation exactly similar to the other legislation, or was it tweaked up in any way, or was it watered down in any way? Maybe give explanation in that regard.
Minister?
Just to follow what the member raised, I think because of the prominence that the member says that ICBA has in the sector, it is unfortunate that they didn't give us any written submissions or engage us at all during the development of it, despite our attempts to do that over a few years, or give written submissions about what they thought. It is unfortunate. And the only public thing that they have said is after the bill has been released. I'll just keep that. And then move on to the questions. So every time we draft legislation, I have a really good team here that looks across every province, because there may be different versions of legislation or different versions of how they do collections that we need to look at. In this case, Ontario introduced prompt payment legislation in 2019, which they also put amendments in 2024, so they were the first province to do that. So I think in many respects, we had the benefit of, first of all, how has it worked since 2019 in Ontario's putting it in place? Did it do what it was supposed to do? Is it providing for prompter payments and the better culture in the sector? And the amendments to 2024. So we really had the benefit of looking at both of those to model legislation that in BC that would fit BC's circumstances in particular, but also go for what we know would work.
Member from Kelowna Mission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure I fully understand what the Attorney General just said. I think what I heard the Attorney General say was that there had been no engagement with groups like the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association. Is that what the Attorney General said? Would you like to clarify what you meant with regard to engagement with the ICBA on this particular bill?
Minister?
Thank you. I mean, I don't know the member just got here, but we were talking extensively about all of the engagement that we've had, including with the ICBA. So we'd gone over all the different organizations, including that organization that we've had met with.
Member from Kelowna Mission.
Thank you. The reason I raised the concern is that I have spent considerable time canvassing a number of different bills with the Attorney General, in which it has been rather evident that the government is disinterested in hearing from the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association, who have been the most vocal critics of the risk of government excluding public sector procurement from this particular bill. So I am just trying to get to the bottom of whether there is a specific disinterest in hearing that feedback that was, perhaps evident in the consultation process or in the lack of engagement. So I just really like to understand how government has gone about engaging ICBA, and in particular, whether, to what extent, and by whom they have gone about engaging with that particular stakeholder, since there has been quite a substantial amount of commentary in the media about the issue of public sector procurement. So has there been any effort to reach out and engage with that particular stakeholder since they have made their extensive commentary in the media about the issue of public sector procurement?
Shall Clause 1 pass? I'm just going to remind everybody that we are in Clause 1 on definitions, and I have given some latitude in regards to it, but I will go back to the definitions and Clause 1 specifically.
So I think it's a general latitude to talk about the consultation of the bill, and because when we're talking about Clause 1, I guess I've debated about 6-7 bills already, and that's always been my experience here at the Legislative Assembly. And because it's really difficult to ask general consultation questions on different clauses, that's why we set it up in Clause 1.
As well, member, you have referenced other ones as well, so I will give some leeway, but we are on Clause 1 on definitions. So some of these questions are becoming repetitive, so I just ask that you change your framing of your questions.
Sure. So we were referring to Ontario earlier, and references were mentioned with Ontario. Were there any other provinces that were consulted? For example, Alberta.
Minister?
Along with Ontario, my team met with Alberta, New Brunswick, and Canada. So those are some of the conversations that have been had, but also, like I mentioned earlier, they're following all the pieces of legislation or legislation that could cover this in other provinces.
Member from Richmond, Queensborough.
So the main example that was mentioned earlier was Ontario, and now we've been told that Alberta and New Brunswick and another province or a couple of other provinces were looked at as well. And what was the experience that was learned upon? Was that legislation essentially following what Ontario had produced, or did that legislation have some differences? And because the references when we're looking at this particular legislation, I know the Attorney General went at lengths to talk about Ontario, what Ontario had done back in 2019, and then how they did an amendment in 2024. But there wasn't any references specifically to any other provinces.
Minister.
So it's too hard to answer this in the abstract because each clause is different, and we can't generalize, because what my team was tasked and did do was look at all of the examples out there and come up with something that applies to BC through the discussions with BC organizations that we mentioned. So I'm happy to go through it clause by clause, but just generally speaking, I'll give you one example. So with Alberta, they had initially put legislation forward that only covered private projects, and then more recently, because of their experience, they're expanding it to public. So that's why ours is broad, and it includes private and public, because it's one of the lessons that we learned from looking at Ontario or Alberta.
Member from Langley, Walnut Grove.
Thank you. Looking at some of the definitions of, for instance, notice of adjudication and notice of non-payment, it refers to a section which describes the process for those two items, whereas proper invoice has a meaning given to it in section 7. Now, if I look at section 7 and the proper invoice, it actually specifies what details need to be included. But I notice in this bill, especially as it comes to notice of adjudication and notice of non-payment, why there's not parameters on what those details of what a proper notice of adjudication is or a notice of non-payment. Could the minister please explain in the definition section why it's not included? Minister?
Thank you. So this is a drafting convention that I'm told by the team here that is a way to really, I think that, no. Vote. Seems like a vote. Okay, well, stay tuned for the rest of that answer.
Minister?
Chair, I move that the committee rise and report progress and ask leave to sit again.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So ordered. This committee stands down.